The controversy exposed a deeper cognitive trap. Our judgments about native and outsider are often based on outward appearance, yet appearance itself is a record of migrations. The nationalist story of an ancient native white Briton cannot stand at depth. If 10,000 years is the benchmark, light-skinned populations in many regions are, in some sense, the later arrivals. The hunter-gatherers who lived on this land for millennia were, genetically, almost entirely replaced. Most modern Britons carry largely the ancestry of Neolithic farming migrants rather than that of Cheddar Man. In that sense, the idea of an original native bloodline is built on forgetting. Many things treated as timeless are actually the result of only the last few thousand years, projecting them backward as eternal turns history into self-comfort. This genetic complexity also challenges basic assumptions about binding people to place as if it were permanent. People in a place are not necessarily those who have always lived there. A land's original inhabitants can be transformed by a population replacement that left almost no direct written record. Britain's story is one of the clearest cases because the genetic evidence is unusually strong, and that is precisely why it so easily becomes a public issue. Prehistory suddenly crashes into present politics for a simple reason: it rewrites the draft narrative of who we are. In this way, the first people who lived on this land neither left nor were remembered. They were replaced quietly, almost without a sound. And the time they endured was far longer than most people imagine. This stateless social form lasted. For thousands of years, it existed longer than the Roman Empire, and longer than the later British Empire. Measured by absolute duration, the longest-lasting social organization in British history was not monarchy and not parliament, but this stateless, hunter-gatherer structure. No tax pressure, no bureaucracy, no standing army. Humans maintained direct ties with nature, while groups relied on kinship and alliances. In the face of that span, the entire era of written human history is only a small tale. The state is not the natural default. It is an organizational experiment that appeared later and is still changing. But there is a question. If this society was so stable, why did it vanish? This is not only a narrative hook, but also a core academic debate. Older anthropology sometimes romanticized hunter-gatherers, and Rousseau-style noble savage stories circulated as early as the 18th century. Marx called it primitive communism. More recent research is more cautious, emphasizing the coexistence of complexity and fragility. These societies were not free of conflict, and not always equal. Evidence exists for gender divisions, age hierarchies, and intergroup violence, but on a smaller scale and with far less institutionalization than in state societies. It was not perfect. What is worth discussing is that it sustained workable order for a long time without a state apparatus. The first answer is environmental. As glaciers retreated, sea levels kept rising, and Doggerland was gradually flooded. High-resolution sonar mapping of the North Sea seafloor has traced drowned river channels, ancient lake basins, and hill contours. Archaeologists sometimes call this work redrawing the map of Europe. Around 6,200 BC, the Storegga tsunami, triggered by a massive submarine landslide off the Norwegian coast, Meha, produced waves exceeding 20 meters and swept across low-lying Doggerland, possibly accelerating the loss. North Sea fishermen have dredged up mammoth molars, bison ribs, and flint tools, which are among the most direct evidence that this drowned land once existed. In coastal areas of the Netherlands and Britain, even a collecting and display culture has formed around North Sea finds. A major scholarly dispute remains: was the Storegga tsunami the final blow that broke Doggerland, or just one dramatic episode in a long retreat? Whatever the answer, shrinking land meant compressed populations, rising competition for resources, and more contact and friction between groups. Usable land tightened like a noose, and conflict and reorganization became increasingly unavoidable. Geographic pressure accumulated for millennia, but the real rupture came from another direction. The true turning point arrived around 4000 BC. Agriculture entered Britain from the European mainland. New migrants brought wheat, domesticated cattle and sheep, and a settled way of life. Ancient DNA work over the last decade has rewritten this history. In only a few centuries, Neolithic farmer ancestry rapidly became dominant in Britain, while local hunter-gatherer ancestry almost disappeared. Replacement estimates exceed 90%. Agriculture was not gently learned. It likely came with a rapid restructuring of population, and in a world without writing, what remains is not chronicles but curves of genetic frequency. Behind those numbers is the hidden history revealed by a genetics revolution. The lab of Harvard population geneticist David Reich has been one of the central engines of this revolution. In 2019, Reich's team published a study in Nature covering roughly 400 ancient genomes from Britain, spanning from the early Neolithic to the late Bronze Age. The conclusion was direct and unsettling. Within a few centuries after farming arrived, hunter-gatherer ancestry in Britain fell almost to zero, replaced by the ancestry stream associated with Anatolian farmers. Replacement exceeded 90% in most regions, and in some areas approached 100%. This is not simple mixing, not mere cultural borrowing. It is near complete population turnover. But how did this replacement happen? This is one of the most active areas of debate because genetics can tell us what happened, but not directly why. Three main mechanisms are discussed repeatedly. Each has supporting evidence and each has gaps. The violent conquest hypothesis argues that organized conflict occurred in some areas. Some Neolithic sites on the European mainland show skeletal evidence of mass death and systematic killing. But in Britain, concentrated evidence for large-scale massacres is less common, and bones alone cannot reconstruct the full landscape of conquest. The disease hypothesis suggests that pathogens associated with settled farming populations and their livestock devastated hunter-gatherers lacking prior immunity. This can explain rapid replacement without strong violence signals, but ancient pathogen genome evidence is still insufficient to fully lock the chain. The fertility differential model argues that settled grain-based life, storage, and weaning foods shorten birth intervals, creating a demographic advantage. The logic is sound, but some mathematical models question whether it is fast enough by itself. The most plausible picture is an overlap of all three, with different weights in different regions. The debate persists because it touches the shadow side of civilizational expansion. Even without clear massacre scenes, replacement can happen through quieter, more structural mechanisms, which is precisely what can feel most unsettling. There is also the question of where the last hunter-gatherers went. After replacement was nearly complete, was a small fraction absorbed? The answer seems limited. Some studies detect faint WUG ancestry in certain British Neolithic genomes, often under 5%. That means total genetic isolation was not absolute and some limited blending occurred, but the small-scale SUGs strong social barriers, or that hunter-gatherer population sizes had already collapsed by the time of contact. Either way, the outcome is the same. The people who lived in the Starkar wetlands wearing antler masks have, in biological terms, scarcely continued into today's British population. They vanished so thoroughly that, beyond scattered bones and headdresses preserved in wetlands, we cannot find their clear echo in any living person's genome. Disappearance becomes biological, not just cultural. Not forgetting, but replacement. Not a change of name, but an ancestry proportion driven down until it is almost inaudible.